Hey, hey everybody. My name is Chris. I'm an alcoholic. Thanks, Steve. It's good to be here with everybody. Just as an explanation of what we're doing, there's 5 weeks in August, and I was asked to do like a big book study kind of a thing. And what kind of came to me was um, what I'd like to do is I'd like to go through the chapter working with others. It's all in there. I mean, all the steps are in there, but
Pause.
they're in the perspective of transmitting that information to another alcoholic. So it's almost like a sponsorship step sponsorship kind of review or whatever that we're doing. And with that, we are on page 90, about halfway down. And up to this point, Bill has explained how important it is to work with other alcoholics, where we can find other alcoholics, and the attitude that we should have with other alcoholics and even family members. So he's discussed that in the first couple of pages. But right now we're about to be presented with an alcoholic from a family, from a doctor. Someone is recommending to a person that they talk to us. Now, this is something that happens to me all the time, almost once a week. I'm being exposed to someone relatively new somewhere, in the internet universe, who may or may not be willing to quit drinking, may or may not be willing to make a decision to take some action for that non-drinking to happen, may or may not be an alcoholic. I get exposed to these people all the time, and I'll be completely honest with you. I really try to follow the instructions in this chapter. At first glance, they almost seem antiquated. They almost seem unreasonable. They almost, they don't fit with like 2022 and how we operate in Alcoholics Anonymous. But they do. Like the instructions that they're giving us are valid today as they were 80 years ago when they showed up in the book Alcoholics Anonymous. So even there's been times where I've applied some of these principles, not expecting them to work, and there's been a good result. And so over the course of time, I've become more and more confident that the information in this chapter really is really beneficial when working with other alcoholics. Now, what was my experience? My experience showing up in Alcoholics Anonymous was, here, kid, here's my phone number. We go to meetings. We don't drink, and we go to meetings. Here's my phone number, and that was like the extent of the help that was going around North Jersey in 1989. This book is really specific about what our responsibilities are, and I'm going to start reading, and we're going to look at what some of those responsibilities and expectations are. How are we a good member of Alcoholics Anonymous? How are we a good sponsor? How are we effective at helping other alcoholics? And these are all good questions to ask as we move through this chapter. And we're going to go through real slow, and I'm going to talk way more than I probably should about some of this stuff, but we'll leave some time at the end for sharing and whatever. All right, so Bill says sometimes it is wise to wait till he goes on a binge. Why is it wise to wait for an alcoholic to go on the bench? There's so many things in this book that are counterintuitive, but when examined, they make a lot of sense. Why is it better to wait for somebody to go on a bench? Because because the willingness to take action to recover from alcoholism is not something that grows on trees. How many of you have worked with alcoholics where you can't even get them to go to meetings, let alone get them to go through the steps? So what helps with that motivation? What helps with that motivation is desperation. What helps with desperation is one more binge, emerging remorseful with a firm resolution never to do it again. That's something that's key. A lot of times capturing an alcoholic's willingness has to happen quickly. What I've seen happen way too often is somebody, when they still got the summons for the DUI in their back pocket. I mean, they're willing. Just tell me what to do. I'm willing. I'm done. I'll quit. You give them 2 or 3 weeks where all you're doing is suggesting them to go to meetings. What's going to happen? They're going to start to feel a little bit better physically, and they're going to start to think that maybe they've overreacted with this whole Alcoholics Anonymous thing. Where if you get them right away, right out of the binge, maybe you can get them through enough step work for them to get in touch with the power. And folks, it's all about us exposing people to the power. I learned a long time ago that I can't get anybody sober. I can't keep anybody sober. It's an illusion to think I can help you. What I can do is I can shine the light. I can shine the light in the direction that you need to go. And I can share with you my personal experience taking that path and encouraging you to take that path and going along for that walk with you. I can do that. But anyway, it says here, the family may object to this, but unless he is in a dangerous physical condition, it's better to risk it. It's better to risk waiting for somebody to go to get that DUI, to have all their furniture and clothes out on the front yard, to lose that job one more time. You got a better shot of willingness the more desperation there is. So don't deal with him when he's very drunk unless he's ugly and the family needs your help. Now, I've done this. I've dealt with people who were so drunk they were in blackouts. Some of the best 12-step work I ever did was sitting across from somebody that was in a blackout that wouldn't have known who the hell I even was the next day. So you want to practice? Do you think your 12-step chops need some practice? Practice on somebody in a blackout or who's very drunk. But the best time is when they're coming out of that binge, emerging remorseful. That really is the best time. Wait for the end of a spree, or at least for a lucid interval. Then let his family or a friend ask him if he wants to quit for good and if he would go to any extreme to do so. Now, there's going to be statements in here that when I was first exposed to them, I thought, that's outrageous. Right out of the gate, you're asking somebody if they're willing to go to any extreme to give up alcohol. That's not going to be a lot of the people I work with. No, it's not going to be a lot of people I work with. But when I find somebody like this who's desperate enough and willing enough to say, yes, you tell me what to do and I'll do it, you got a real good shot with that person. That's a depth of willingness that is just, it's our job to capture that willingness, especially when it's like that. Are there going to be a lot of people who really just want the consequences of drinking to be minimized? They're not looking for an experience with God. They're not looking to build a life of service. They're not looking to recover from alcoholism. They just want, the pain to go away. So there's this great story. I think it was in The Power of Now. There's this little kid, right? And he's so into Little League. He's really into baseball. Okay. And one day all of a sudden he starts to get a toothache, and he's like, damn, I got a toothache. Now, as the day goes on, his toothache is getting a little worse, but he's got a big game tomorrow, right? He's got a big game tomorrow, and that's what he's thinking about. And he's hoping it's going to go away. He's hoping it's going to go away. He knows if he goes to his mother will crush up some aspirin, and give it to him, and his toothache will be, he knows that there's some help for this, but he doesn't ask for it. He just kind of hopes that it goes away itself. And as the night progresses, finally, he can't even sleep. His tooth is just throbbing, and he goes and he wakes his mother up, and he says, Mom, my tooth. And of course she crushes up aspirin, and, she gives it to him, and, whatever else. And he's able to go back to sleep. The pain goes away, and he's able to go back to sleep. Now, why did he wait? Why did he wait? He knew that there was some action that he could take that would help. He waited because he knew, yeah, she'll do her thing and the toothache will go away. But tomorrow, a phone call is going to go to Dr. Mengele, the dentist. And he's gonna sit in that chair, and there's gonna be drills and smoke and suction devices and blood and and spitting out in bowls, and he's gonna be in that dentist chair for 2 or 3 hours, and he's gonna walk out of there. He's gonna walk out of there with perfect teeth. Okay, he doesn't want perfect teeth. He wants the pain to go away. And a lot of times that's what the alcoholic is like, that shows up in Alcoholics Anonymous, and they're going to waste your time. You're going to sponsor them, and they're going to drink on you and make you look bad. They're going to, you know what I mean? The willingness to recover from alcoholism is something that we're looking for. So are they willing to go to any lengths? That cuts out a lot of the half measure crowd right there. And as we move through this, we're going to see that these terms that we're going to be putting in front of the alcoholic, they're pretty serious. And the information we're giving the alcoholic is really serious. We're going to be sharing with them what we did, everything we did to recover from alcoholism. And that goes counterintuitive to me. I want people to like me sometimes, rather than be really effective at helping somebody. I don't want to hurt their feelings. And that's a character defect in me. And this book cuts a lot of that stuff away. If he says, yes, I'm willing to go to any extreme, so then his attention should be drawn to you as a person who has recovered. And there's the term recovered. You should be described to him as one of a fellowship who, as part of their own recovery, try to help others, and who will be glad to talk to him if he cares to see you. This is the family or the doctors or whatever who are recommending you. If he does not want to see you, never force yourself upon him. Neither should the family hysterically plead with him to do anything, nor should they tell him very much about you. They should wait for the end of his next drinking bout. Now, that's the third time he said that, okay? You might place this book where he can see it in the interval. Here, no specific rule can be given. Has anybody ever come to from a bender and found Alcoholics Anonymous literature on the night table or something? This is a really cool attitude that they're asking us to help the family members with. And the attitude is to chill, to just chill. Don't go crazy about this. Look at this as it's an illness. Okay, don't get hysterical, frothy emotional appeal. Just chill out, and hopefully this process will work. I heard a great Al-Anon story. I'm going to share it. I'm going to share it now. Now, one of the most heroic things I've ever seen is like an Al-Anon with like super big book recovery, who's living with an active drunk, married to an active drunk. And this woman's telling this story one time, and she goes, "Yeah, my Charlie, what would happen? What would happen is we'd all get upset. The family's yelling at him. He's drove the car through the garage and out the back again. Or lost another job, and we're yelling and freaking out. And what he would do is he would grab his heart." And he'd fall on the floor and he'd be like, oh, like he's having a heart attack, right? And everybody calm down and like, are you okay? Are you okay? And it would completely shift, the whole mood. Now nobody's yelling at him anymore. They're like pampering him. And he would do this as a ploy, when everybody was beating up on him. So this woman starts going to Al-Anon, and she's gone to Al-Anon like 6 months, and she goes, yeah, when he falls down on the floor and he grabs his heart, I vacuum around him now. You know what I mean? Like, so there's like an attitude. There's an attitude that is important for us to have, and this book is kind of cluing in the family. The family must decide these things. But urge them not to be over anxious, for that might spoil matters. Okay, so chill. Usually the family should not try to tell your story. When possible, avoid meeting a man through his family. Approach through a doctor or an institution is a better bet. There's still, I got to tell you, I think I shared this last week. My doctor sends me one person a month. I get referrals from treatment centers around the country when someone's, leaving Happy Hills and they're moving back to New Jersey. I happen to be one of the people that, get the phone call. So that there's a lot of ways still that you can get alcoholics referred to you. You gotta shake the tree a little bit, but just sitting in, your loony closed-minded discussion meeting, waiting for somebody to ask you for help is not necessarily, what they want us to do. The instructions in this book is get out there, do your job, get out there, try to find alcoholics. Try to find alcoholics that don't know anything about Alcoholics Anonymous. It's better to get somebody who doesn't know anything about Alcoholics Anonymous, who hasn't gone to like a year's worth of discussion meetings somewhere. It's better to get them when, right off the tree. I swear. If your man needs hospitalization, he should have it, but not forcibly unless he is violent. Let the doctor, if he will, tell him he has something in the way of a solution. So this is, my doctor basically tells his drug seekers and, his alcoholics that he might have something in a way of a solution. Would you like to talk to this guy, Chris? And, that's basically how he handles it. Now, do a lot of people, sober up right away? A lot of people aren't supposed to sober up right away. What we're supposed to do is we're supposed to go through a number of people until we find the person who's willing to go to any lengths, who would go to any extreme to do so. So I got sober where someone would ask you to sponsor them in AA. And then all of a sudden you'd get them involved in the sober bowling, and you'd drive them to meetings, and you'd lend them money and lawnmowers and help them move. That's like the place and the time where I come from, where you concentrate a lot of attention on like one person who's probably half measure Harry, right? The book is not asking us to do that. The book wants us to go through a ton of people, and find the ones that are willing to go to any length to do so. And it takes a lot of work out there on the street. Things have changed in Alcoholics Anonymous. Most people do find the people that they work with through the recovery process, but there's still a lot of sick and suffering alcoholics out there that have not been exposed to Alcoholics Anonymous. And there's even more of them that have been exposed to Alcoholics Anonymous, but don't think it'll work for them because all they did was go to discussion meetings or something, and not get involved in the step process at all. They just talked about their alcoholism a lot, and all of a sudden they were drinking again, and I guess that AA thing might work for some people. It didn't work for me. And they don't even know that they didn't do AA. You know, so a lot of this stuff is really our responsibility. If we do the first and the second visit with somebody, then they'll know what AA is and what AA isn't. You know, AA is not sitting in a chair in meetings, meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting, and that's all. You know, Alcoholics Anonymous is a much deeper experience. So when your man is better, the doctor might suggest a visit from you. So this is the first visit. Okay, this is the first time we're coming face to face with the alcoholic. Though you have talked with the family, leave them out of the first discussion. Under these conditions, your prospect will see that he's under no pressure. He will feel he can deal with you without being nagged by his family. Call on him while he is still jittery. He may be more receptive when depressed. You know, I had an experience with a new guy the other day, and so often it's on the phone or it's Zoom. It's not in person as much anymore. Half the reason is I moved way up in the boonies. And you know, the other reason is just there's so much communication. There's so many communicating devices that a lot of times, you know, our first talk is going to be over the phone. And in that first talk, I explained to this guy what alcoholism was, what the obsession of the mind was, what the allergy of the body was, what the unmanageability looks like, what the progression of drinking looks like. I explained that, locked him in. That was his experience. Then I started to talk about what Alcoholics Anonymous was. And when I got off of the phone from that first talk, this dude is going to know what doing Alcoholics Anonymous is going to include. And he may not want to do it. That's fine. But look at it this way. In my early days, people really thought that they just get you to meetings and the meeting is going to do the magic. And sometimes that worked, you know, it kind of worked with me. I fell in love with the meetings and I stuck around the meetings until I realized that there was a program of recovery, you know, that was part of Alcoholics Anonymous that very few people were talking about. You know, that was my experience. But think about this, you know, just getting somebody to a meeting. Let's say you have cancer, all right? And you show up in the hospital, you know, you show up asking for help for your cancer. And the doctor comes up and goes, oh man, you know, let me tell you, the first thing I want you to do is there's a cancer support group I want you to join. I want you to join the cancer support group, and they have contact people. They have people in the cancer support group that you can get as your contact, and I want you to do that. And that cancer support group meets 3 or 4 times a week, and you know there's commitments there. You can make coffee, and you can do all this stuff, and that's what I want you to do. Would you say, I'm not? You know, are you nuts? You know, I want treatment. I want treatment for my cancer. I don't want to hang out in a support group. You know, don't you have chemo? Don't you have radiation? Like, would it be compassionate for a doctor to just refer you to the support group? And yet, so often, that's what we do in Alcoholics Anonymous. We're asking them to go to the support group. No, there's treatment. There's a solution for alcoholism. How about we talk about that, you know? How about we talk about it? How about if that scares people away, those are the people that would be wasting our time anyway. How about that, you know? So he may be more receptive when depressed. See your man alone if possible. Now, this doesn't mean go on 12-step calls alone. I've done a lot. Back in the 90s, we were doing a 12-step call a week. It's just not happening like it used to, but I still go on them. But I've had my life threatened a couple of times on these crazy 12-step calls. So is it smart to have 2 guys? I mean, that's the way they did it. Look at the painting, The Man on the Bed. 2 guys would show up and tell their story while the guy was still in the hospital, telling them what alcoholism was and telling them what the treatment for alcoholism was, explaining the step process to them. That was, the first visit. There's a beautiful Norman Rockwell-esque kind of a painting that you see in meeting rooms that portray that, right? So after a while, turn the talk towards some phase of drinking. It's kind of like a light conversation. Hey, how you doing? I'm from Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm gonna, if it's all right with you, I'm gonna just talk a little bit, and you start talking about your drinking. And you talk about the progression of drinking. You talk about how it was a lot of fun at first, but it just seemed to be a different experience for you than it was for some of the other people. And it just seemed to more problems happened over the course of time, and it just got uglier and uglier. And you talk about your experience drinking. Tell him enough about your drinking habits, symptoms, and experiences, and encourage him to speak for himself. This may be the first time that an alcoholic thinks that they're sitting in front of somebody that might understand what they've been going through, because we don't understand it. Like I didn't understand my alcoholic experience. I thought I was way different. My case is so darkly, deeply complicated. You know what I mean? Like yeah, I overdrink, but that's not it. There's some stuff that I've gone through. There's some issues that I have, and but you sit with an alcoholic, and the alcoholic strips all that away, and they just talk about their drinking, and some identification can happen. And you're bearing your soul, the person might start to bear their soul and talk about their drinking, which would be good. If he wishes to talk, let him do so. You will thus get a better idea of how you ought to proceed. If he's not communicative, give him a sketch of your drinking career up to the time you quit, but say nothing for the moment of how that was accomplished. If he is in a serious mood, dwell on the troubles liquor has caused you, being careful not to moralize or lecture. If his mood is light, tell him humorous stories of your escapades. Get him to tell some of his. What are they asking us to do in this chapter? They're asking us to establish some type of relationship with this person, some type of communication relationship. You have to understand how you can approach these people. This is not a cookie cutter thing, this identification process. We change the way we are presenting depending on the person and the person's mood. We highlight different things depending on the person's experience, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to have them gain confidence in us that we know what we're talking about with this drinking thing. And hopefully for them to get curious about how and why we quit. Because they're going to be curious. Very rarely do you find an alcoholic who hasn't contemplating separating from alcohol. Many, many times they've been trying to separate from alcohol for years and have not been able to do it. So that's going to be something that's going to interest him. When he sees you know all about the drinking game, commence to describe yourself as an alcoholic. Tell him how baffled you were, how you finally learned that you were sick. And this is true for me. What I learned when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous was what alcoholism was. All right, and until I started to really dig into the book Alcoholics Anonymous, and there were teachers that were helping me do that, I didn't know what alcoholism was. I didn't, I knew that I drank too much, and I knew I couldn't stop drinking. So I guess that's alcoholism. But alcoholism is a much, much deeper problem. It's an enormous problem. It's a problem I can't solve. It's a problem I can't solve on my own unaided will. I can't solve it. And it's emotional, it's spiritual, it's physical, it's mental. It's an all-encompassing illness, and it corrodes every area of my life. And that really is an illness. That's an illness. Give him an account of the struggles you made to stop. So how I would do that was I'd say, listen, the last 2 years of my drinking, I would swear off alcohol in the morning. And I meant it. You could put a lie detector on me and I would be telling the truth. I am never going to drink again. But by the time I'm coming home from work, I'm stopping at the liquor store. Oh yeah, I did that too. Yeah, I quit drinking a lot of times too. Well, how about alcoholism is a lack of power? how about you don't have the power to separate from alcohol yourself, and you don't have the power to control it when you drink it? And how about I talk to you from my own personal experience about how that was true for me, using the information right out of the doctor's opinion. How about if I share that with you? And a lot of times this is the first time anybody's ever explained the behavior the person has been exhibiting for years. I always thought I just needed to try harder. I just need to try to stop drinking harder. Next time I'll try harder. Well, if that's what you think, then next time you're just going to try harder, and it's not going to work that time either. How about we don't have the power to separate from alcohol? How about there's a solution to that? But how about if you really are alcoholic, if you're too far gone, you're not going to be able to separate from alcohol on your own. That may be true for you because it was true for me. Showing the mental twist which leads to the first drink of a spree. So it's described in many different ways, subtle form of insanity, the mental twist, the strange mental blank spot. Sometimes I think very matter-of-factly that, I'm just going to stop at the liquor store and blow, my 90 days. But sometimes I don't think at all. Sometimes I'm banging the bar, asking myself, how the hell did I start drinking again? You know what I mean? What is going on? I know that I shouldn't drink. I know it's the first drink that gets me drunk. I know she's going to throw me out of the house if I come home drunk. I know I'm going to lose my job. I know the judge is going to put me in jail. I know. What am I doing drinking? Okay, so you can explain that to them, that an obsession of the mind is a thought that overrides all other thoughts. You can be I was on the way to an AA meeting one time. I'm on the way to an AA meeting. I'm going to see my sponsor there. We're probably going to go out and have a hamburger. He's wanting me to, get a commitment at the treatment center, and I got to share some stuff with him. And there's the liquor store. I think I'll pull in the liquor store and buy a gallon of vodka. That was the obsession of the mind. So all the other thoughts, I'm going to AA, I'm not drinking today. Yay. I'm keeping it simple. I'm first things first in. I'm upside down thinking a couple of times, I think I'll stop and buy a gallon of vodka. Now, I could lie to myself and say that I changed my mind. But changing my mind to go back to alcohol, knowing what I know alcohol does to me, is insane. Okay, that has to come from a place of insanity. That's like walking into a hornet's nest. That's like robbing a bank. It's something that just is nuts. But I lie to myself and I say, I know that I went to treatment, I went to AA, and I told everybody I wasn't going to drink, and I got a sponsor, and I joined a home group, but I changed my mind. No, you don't have a mind to change. So this is the kind of information that we try to share with the person that we're working with, the strange mental twist that precedes the first drink. We suggest you do this as we have done it in the chapter on alcoholism. More about alcoholism has Fred, Jim, the man of 30, the jaywalker, incredibly great examples of people who really thought, thanks for the information, I got this. You ever work with somebody like that? Thanks for the information, I got it. Yeah. You don't got nothing. If you're an alcoholic, you got nothing. But we got to be nice. We got to be nice to everybody. Anyway, if he's an alcoholic, he will understand you at once. He will match your mental inconsistencies with some of his own. Hey, you swore off drinking, but you ended up drunk. Tell me a couple of those stories. I bet you have stories about that. And they'll tell you like they swore they wouldn't get drunk at their sister's wedding. And ended up completely embarrassing everybody there. It just we've all got those stories, right? We've all got those stories, and our ego and our thinking mind does not like for us to admit that we had no part in that. It came from a place of insanity, but that's the truth. That's part of the illness. We didn't have an ability to not drink. At certain times, we have no mental defense against the first drink at certain times. Now, that's serious. You know what I mean? That's basically saying the unrecovered alcoholic is hopeless. They can't just decide not to drink. It doesn't work. If someone can decide not to drink and for the rest of their life they're not drinking, they're not an alcoholic. You know what I mean? Not according to this book. This book deals with the hopeless alcoholics, or the hardcore cases of alcoholism. There's a lot of people that show up in Alcoholics Anonymous and still have some power, still have some choice, still have some control, and that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. But this book is dealing with, the hopeless cases, and a hopeless case is, you're not going to stop drinking. You may want to with every fiber of your being, but you're not going to be able to. If you're satisfied that he's a real alcoholic, so we're supposed to be satisfied. Why? Because we shouldn't be wasting our time. Now, can we work with someone who maybe is not an alcoholic? Can we work with people who have drug problems and food problems and sex problems? Sure, absolutely. But what this book is telling us is our time is incredibly valuable. Our 12-step work, our one-on-one 12-step work, should be done with someone who is willing to work with us. Now, what does that mean? Willing to go through the 12 steps. That's where we should focus our 12-step one-on-one time with people like that. Have we all, focused on other people, with our sponsorship and reaching out in AA? Absolutely. And, I'm not saying that's wrong, but this book is telling us that we're incredibly valuable as recovered alcoholics. We can help when no one else can. So it may be incumbent upon us to cut loose people who are not willing to go through the steps with us and move on to someone that is, who's willing to go who's willing to engage in the solution to alcoholism and not just want the relief of sobriety. Many people are going to come into AA and they're going to be completely satisfied with the relief of sobriety, however tenuous that is, right? We're supposed to concentrate on the people who want to recover, who want freedom from the bondage of self, freedom from the obsession of the mind, freedom from, the corrosive character defects, recovery from alcoholism. So if you're convinced that he's a real alcoholic, begin to dwell on the hopeless feature of the malady. Show him from your own experience how the queer mental condition surrounding the first drink prevents the normal functioning of the willpower. Again, I was talking about this earlier. Okay, why is it we've sworn off alcohol 35 times from Sunday and it's never taken? There's an explanation for that. Don't at this stage refer to this book unless he's seen it and wishes to discuss it. And be careful not to brand him as an alcoholic. Let him draw his own conclusion. So yeah, this is what an alcoholic is. Mental obsession, allergy of the body, unmanageable life. This is what an alcoholic is, Hey, that sounds a lot like me. It might be. If he sticks to the idea that he can still control his drinking, tell him that he possibly can if he's not too alcoholic. I really like this sentence. I get that mental obsession thing. But I think I got a pretty good willpower, and I've quit before. I think I'm going to be fine. When I get out of here, they're in a treatment center. When I get out of here, things are going to be different. I'm going to be okay. Our attitude is supposed to be, well, maybe it will be. But if you find alcohol going back in your body, here's my phone number. Please call me. I'd love to help. but insists that if he's severely afflicted, there may be little chance he can recover by himself. And that's true. There's a scale of alcoholism. This is something that doesn't get talked about in meetings very much, right? But there's a scale in alcoholism. Some people are sicker than others. So no matter how far down the scale you've gone, you'll find your experience can benefit others. Your ability to quit drinking on a non-spiritual basis will depend upon the amount of control you've lost and drank. And then in the chapter to wives, there's heavy drinker number one, alcoholic number two, potential alcoholic number two, alcoholic number three, alcoholic number four, and it's a progression into like the booby hatch of alcoholism. So there's a scale in alcoholism, and what I believe is if you've gone down the scale far enough, the only solution is going to be a spiritual solution. You're not going to have a pharmaceutical solution. You're not going to have a psychiatric solution. You're not going to have a geographic solution. You're not going to have a new relationship solution. None of those things are going to be sufficient. You're going to have a spiritual solution if you've gone down the scale far enough. Now, some people haven't gone down the scale far enough. Some people can do the right about face and our hats are off to them. Some people can go back out and drink like gentlemen. God bless you if you can do that. But if you've gone down the scale, if alcoholism has really had its way with you, there's a real good chance the only way you're going to have any quality of life within a permanently sober state is by being recovered. And that's the brass ring that we can offer these people. We can offer them a path to recovery. Continue to speak of alcoholism as an illness, a fatal malady. Talk about the conditions of body and mind that accompany it. Obsession of the mind, allergy of the mind. Keep his attention focused mainly on your personal experience. Explain that many are doomed who never realize their predicament. Yeah. I'm not a big slogan slinger. As a matter of fact, I think the slogans have done more damage than they've done good. Not because the slogans aren't good, but because the alcoholics are hearing them. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like easy does it, yeah, that fourth step, I'm gonna easy does it. First things first. I'm sorry, I do the second thing first because I don't like doing the first thing first. How do you hang on? How do you hang on? Well, you gotta let go. If you're an alcoholic, you can misconstrue all of these suggestions. But one of the ones I like is this: the chains of alcoholism are too soft to feel until they're too strong to break. And what that means is by the time alcohol and alcoholism has got your attention, you might be past the point of where you can do anything about it yourself. You're going to need outside help. And make sure that you share that with the person. Listen, they may be convinced that they just need to try harder. They need to try harder. Okay, here's my number. Doctors are rightly loath to tell the alcoholic patients the whole story unless it will serve some good purpose. But you may talk to him about the hopelessness of alcoholism because you offer a solution. This is the thing: hopeless, hopeless, hopeless. Well, what are you doing, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, sitting in front of me, sober for 10, 20, 30 years? What happened with you? I'm glad you asked. Anyway, you will find soon that your friend will be admitting he has many, if not all, the traits of the alcoholic. If his own doctor is willing to tell him he's alcoholic, so much the better. Even though your protege may not have entirely admitted his condition, he has become very curious to know how you got well. Let him ask you that question. Perfect. That's like the fish coming up to the hook, if that question gets asked. Tell him exactly what happened to you, and that's squiggly font, right? Tell him exactly what happened to you. See, we share our experience. And from that comes strength and hope. From that experience, our opinions. We don't recover and we don't change our life from opinions. We change it from spiritual principles. We're not looking for advice. We're looking for a solution. We're looking for a path. a path to recovery in this thing called Alcoholics Anonymous. So tell them exactly what happened to you. Stress the spiritual feature freely. If the man be atheist or agnostic, make it emphatic that he does not have to agree with your conception of God, as long as he's willing to develop a conception of God. This is, this is the thing. And I get in trouble sharing this stuff, but I feel strongly about it. I'm going to do it tonight anyway. All right. God is something that some people in Alcoholics Anonymous thinks is extra credit. Okay. A relationship with God, some people think is optional. If it's your experience that it is optional, it's a really good chance that you're a heavy drinker or a potential alcoholic, because connection with the divine is what recovery is. That's what the solution to alcoholism is. The solution to alcoholism is connection to the divine. So are we gonna skip this God thing because we don't want to scare them away? That would be like the doctor. That would be like the doctor not talking about chemo or radiation because it might scare the patient out of the office. Well, cancer is going to scare them right back in. And alcoholism is going to scare them right back in. Now, listen, they may be a heavy drinker. They may be a potential alcoholic who does not need God. Then they don't need our 12-step time. We can be really good AA members. We can drive them to a meeting. We can be on the sober bowling league with them. But the one-on-one, knee-to-knee, eye-to-eye that this book is telling us we need to do, that's going to be with someone who's willing to go through the steps. You go through the steps, you experience God, and it's your experience. It's your concept. It is 100% within you, that experience. But that experience is not extra credit. You know what I mean? It's part of this thing called being a recovered alcoholic. So he's saying you can choose whatever conception you want. You can start where you are. You can throw out the conception that you have now. The God up on the, up in the clouds with long hair and the list of all your sins. I mean, you can get rid of that right now if you want. We can start at something much, much simpler. But that's going to be a part of this process. That there's chemo and there's radiation involved in this solution. He can choose any conception he likes, provided it makes sense to him. The main thing is that he be willing to believe in a power greater than himself and that he live by spiritual principles. That's what we do. That's what we do to recover from alcoholism. Okay, we recover from alcoholism by living spiritual principles. You said you were willing to go to any lengths. The hoop you have to jump through is a lot bigger than you think. I'll help you every step of the way, and it's even fun most of the time. Okay, so let's go. Let's do some spiritual principling. You know what I mean? Let's recover from this thing called alcoholism. When dealing with such a person, you may be better to use everyday language to describe spiritual principles. There's no use arousing any prejudice he may have against certain theological terms and conceptions about which he may already be confused. Don't raise such issues, no matter what your own convictions are. So this isn't about religion. Okay, the difference between religion and spirituality is this. In religion, we're going to explain to you what is the orthodox belief and practices. Okay, you want to be a Methodist. Okay, here's the pre-Cana, or here's we're going to send you to Sunday school. We're going to teach you all about what Methodists believe and how Methodists take the Eucharist and all. This is what Methodists do. Okay, it's how we get married. It's how it's how we have funerals. This is Methodism. All right. Now, you willing to buy into all that? We'll confirm you as a Methodist. Okay. The great thing about Alcoholics Anonymous is it's a wide open canvas. Okay. The canvas is wide open. We paint on it as we see fit. We develop this conception of a relationship with the divine as we get moved toward it. If you're willing to do the steps, what's going to happen is you're going to have an experience with the divine. And you don't even have to call it God. You can call it a power greater than yourself. You can call it the spirit of the universe, whatever. But the important thing is gaining access to that power, because it's that power that's going to do for you what you cannot do for yourself. It's that power that's going to bring you back from the gates of death and insanity and put you into a place of recovery. It's that power that's going to eliminate the obsession of the mind. You're going to be released from the obsession of the mind, and alcohol's not going to go back in your body again, staying in a recovered space. So it's important. It's important. And, I've babbled on enough. Next week we'll start with your prospect may belong to a religious denomination. But I want to say that we've gone about halfway through the first visit. The first time we sit with an alcoholic, we've gone about halfway through what we're supposed to do, what we're supposed to be talking about, how we're supposed to be identifying. So good, good stuff, good stuff. If I'll end with this, if your sponsor has a different way of looking at all this, if you think I'm nuts, you're probably right, and your sponsor's probably right. This is only my experience. This comes from 32 and a half years of working with other alcoholics, like almost constantly. Okay. So I do have some experience, but that doesn't make me right. You know what I mean? That doesn't make me a glowing example of this whole thing. So anyway, with that, I'm going to turn the meeting back to my friend Steve, and he's going to do with it as he sees fit.